So go, give it a hand for Morten again.
Hey, så skal jeg gøre det her i dansk og snakke rigtig langsomt, eller skal vi tage den on English and do it a bit quicker? How long time do we have? Holy Jesus fuck. Okay. So this is a project I've been working on for a couple of years. It's called the Mothership, and the concept behind the Mothership was basically I was a little bit more than normally frustrated about how the markup in Drupal looked. I mean, like when you do a view source on the Drupal side, if you have anything to do with normal front-end developers, and if you work with other people who don't work with Drupal, they will usually go, what the fuck is that kind of crap? And why do they do that? Well, because of Drupal's basic markup has an idea of, I mean, let's do a dump here. We have a shit ton, but I know that we should aggregate all these, but if we do this without aggregating, we have a ton of files and a shit ton of JavaScript, and now the fun begins. Div class, region page top, div ID, toolbar, blah blah blah. But we have markup with markup on. We have divs with divs with divs. I mean, even the divs that comes in Drupal has more divs with them, just because we need one more div. Lots of reasons for this. Let's go down here and see. We have a header region here, and we begin to have class names for, I mean, almost everything. And those of you who heard my first talk today, I talked about that we're trying to use this as a hook. We're trying to identify each element in Drupal in multiple ways. So it has kind of made block menu, block system, main menu class. We're trying to define everything 1,000 times. And why are we trying to define these things 1,000 times? Well, what's happening is that we are plowing our markup with unusable crap that we don't need. I mean, if we wrote all this stuff by hand, you know, with a good old text editor and just wrote our markup as we wanted to, would we ever write it that way? Anyone? I see no hands. Why wouldn't we do that? Well, because we would customize it to be the quickest and fastest stuff we could do. This is built by a machine. That machine is called Drupal. A Drupal machine is run by developers who usually does what we saw before, talked about the big ass hippo that they're trying to get to work. And when they're done getting that hippo to be a lean, sleek machine, they kind of, you know, put the outputs out there, and somebody can grab it and you can retheme it. Retheme it in Drupal world is basically change the markup. So me being kind of frustrating that stuff looked like this, and a lot of time, I mean, in my working day, it's going like, okay, let's see what's here. Inspect element. Okay, I need to get something. Why do I have a span down here? Why do I have a class in here? I don't need this class. Why is all this stuff always here if I just need clean mean markup? So that's kind of the whole idea behind the project, is that the idea is to build a base theme that basically cleans out all the crap. Or as the slogan were when I started the project, fix everything that's wrong. Because me, as a dude out of Copenhagen, I have an ego that's way out there, and it's kind of fun. So let me just do this. Ding. So the idea is that this is a base theme, just like Zen is a base theme. And by loading this stuff as a base theme, well, what you're going to do is you're going to get some control over the markup through a UI, instead of you having to go through theme function all over and looking for them, figuring out how to do this, and figuring out how to move stuff without breaking it. Because if you move all classes from Drupal, a lot of stuff in Drupal won't work. One of the first versions I put out with the Mothership actually broke Vue's ability to use Ajax calls to do the back and forth scrolling on data. So I kind of killed views just by removing a class. And that was not so good, especially not when I suddenly figured out that I have 4 clients, but I kind of killed the size on that because I want to remove the class. So that came around for me to say, okay, I need to do this in a custom way, also so other people can use it. And I mean, when you begin to dig down to the markup of Drupal, it's a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that you're not sure where it comes from. And if you come from me, like from a design world, just want to implement designs, it's going to be a hell. So what I kind of ended up doing, well, the idea was this: less diff, more awesome. I mean, if there's less divs, the site will not be weighing that much, I mean, by sheer kilobytes. When people talk about, oh, the mobile revolution, now our sites need to get fast. When I started doing websites back in 1996, a website was not allowed to weigh over 100 kilos. 100 kilos. How many of you have even done an image this week that was under 100 kilos? I mean, right now we just throw all kinds of shit into our websites. Shit ton of it. But we have mobile phones that needs to go on a shitty connection and try to get the data down. So we became sloppy. Drupal did all this because we needed to do that. I mean, the same thing with the CSS. We loaded a shit ton of CSS in it too. JavaScript. How many JavaScript files does Drupal's front page actually need? So let's see here. And we put this back here to the. So what this is in the heart of the soul of this is this is a theme that you go into the appearance and well. The Mothership by itself is just a base theme. You can use that and just by pointing out, it doesn't make your site look good at all because that's not the point about this theme. This theme is about making your markup look good. And that seems maybe a kind of eccentric, but markup nerds and front-end people love that stuff, that clean markup. By the way, while I'm at it, anybody of you people are UX people? You two guys, I have an assignment for you later afterwards, so you need to come over to me because we have important stuff. You're on, by the way. On. Good. So, the thing here is that the Mothership by itself is just a base thing that you just use. And the way you use it is actually you, if you have a new theme, this theme is fun enough called new theme. Well, this is where the magic happens. You just in your info file say, okay, use base theme Mothership, done. That's how you install it, that's how you use it. And you can put your theme wherever you want in your theme system. So you can use this in a site alt folder where I was using it, and then I can call it from wherever I want to call it from my local sites. That's kind of the basic idea of it. So if I have this is the basic new theme that comes out of it. Normally what you want to do if you want to build a site in the Mothership is you just take this new theme file and copy it over. It has like basic icons with it, folders for stuff, a node TPL or a page TPL because me being markup nerdy, I'm guessing that people using this theme want to control their own markup. I mean, this theme is not for you if you don't care about markup, if you don't care about making things smaller and using a thing to figure out if an article or a site tag is the right thing. This is probably not the theme you want to work with. You probably want to use another theme that makes your stuff pretty. This is all about extreme control. Back to you go into the settings, and the settings are actually where all the fun stuff happens. First of all, I've begun to build some small tools to help you out in day-to-day work. So the Pro Themers helper came out of the, you all know the develop module, right? You know the develop themer module. Quick raise of hands. Okay, the big problem about develop themer is that it smothers your markup in spans and crap, and it doesn't really give you any answer where you want to go. I mean, I just need to know what the function is called. I don't need to know what kind of template I need to go through. So I can grab that template, throw it in my theme, and read on my stuff. So Pro Themers helper was kind of an idea of why don't I just print out in HTML comments all the stuff that I need to know. I want to show you that in a bit. Rebuild the theme register is kind of an old thing for the same theme, so I don't have to like draw CC all day because that's going to be tired. A test class up in the body, the idea behind that is that when we do development, we want to have quick way to like say this is a develop site. Instead of installing a module for that, well, I just need a class, one little class. I call that test. So you can like say body.test dash background pink, or you can load in your whole grid for that thing. So you can have that stuff in your CSS and put it on and off very, very quickly when you work. And the last thing, this is the new magic thing because I figured out that apparently media queries and mobile stuff is the new hot shit. So having the magic media query indicator can do yourself for it. Further down we have controls for JavaScript, CSS, classes and markup. And classes and markup is kind of this is where it begins to shine. This is where we go in and mold every element. and we kind of have a goodie bag with other stuff in that I really could not fit in other places and trying to play around with. The thing though about this theme is that it is not as highly experimental as it used to be. It used to be just my pet project. Now the thing happened that people are actually using it, so I have to respect that and really begin to be more steady. And if people want to help out with working on this and discuss markup and figure out how we want to do it, I would love some help. We even have real documentation now. So, but let's just quick save this and say, all right. So what does this give us? Well, if we go into the markup, we can see here. That's the page main. Okay, let's get down to the node instead. That's pretty much more fun. So this is a demo I kind of threw together in the last second. So I've created this content type. Content type is called prototype, and the prototype basically has every, now the form from here, every field I could find that Drupal could be able to put at us. This took a shit ton of time to put together. It's built as a feature, and I have that feature, and I want to put it out on GitHub or something so people can actually download it. Because it took I have a student helper, and I just put it to work for a whole day to sit and click, 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 everything. There's probably a developer who could do this way much quicker and smarter, but at some point I'm just a hand-on dude. I wanted to be able to look at stuff. So you see, this is just mumble data. The thing is that when we begin to look into stuff here, you can see you've got a shit ton of classes on, and what I want to do is I want to be able to actually to clean all this out. Let's just make sure that we have clean the cache. As you right now, I'm not using the compressors at all to make sure that you can all see what's happening. All right, let's get back. Okay, so let's start looking at the CSS. The main two things is that one part of Drupal has a shit ton of CSS files we want to remove. We can either remove them by the fork off and die technique I've talked about, which is basically you go into the CSS file and you find the files that you don't want to have loaded in your site and just add them into it. Remove the CSS files. Another way you could do that is I've created this column. This is all the CSS files that this Drupal installation comes with. It has potential 143 CSS files it could load on top of your CSS. The amount of times that your CSS could be overridden by something a module does is absurd. And this is, in my opinion, a very wrong way to work. I can see that on the system level why we do this, but I want to control my theme. I want to be able to be sure that it's my stuff to get through. So you can actually go in and say, well, okay, kill everything that has a block. Yeah, it has the name block in the site, in the name of the path, you can remove it. So basically, if you do like let's say a module, you would kill every CSS files that are in a module. It's a simple regular expression that runs through. Some small elements you can just remove them quick. The idea behind this is that we have CSS files that we don't want to have in. So let me just see here. If we do this, let's go over and look at the CSS. Let's say what should we kill here? Let's take the applicator. See, it's a lot of kind of sitting and fiddling around and figuring out, you know, what do we want to kill? Is this or that thing we want to kill? And let's make sure that why is this is why I don't do live demos. This is silly. Why is this not? God damn it! Something funky is happening here. All right, sorry about that. The idea is that it should be working, and I have no idea why it's not working. This makes no sense. Got that. No live demos ever again. Okay, good. To the next one. The thing I also put in here is also different kinds of basic resets. Eric Myers resets, normalizer, if you know, anybody know normalizer project? Basically the idea is to have basic idea of how CSS is done. Instead of having the aggressive reset, you have like a more clean way that every browser works. So we don't end up having everything to override and override and override again. So if we come down to the body, look at the body here. So, I mean, this is kind of the basic that, I mean, we have HTML class in body. What does that do? Nobody knows, but it's there. We have a not front, fair enough. We have logged in. We have different kind of class that tells us different things. Page node, something, page node. I mean, we have a ton of classes here that, in my, if we don't use it, why do we add it? So, the idea is, I'm going to kill myself that this has an idea of, you can go ahead and say, what kind of stuff don't I need in this theme? I mean, I don't need HTML. If I'm not even working with users, this is, by the way, it's not doing anything natural. It just takes the string with the array in and just remove these elements. But you can kind of remove these things as you don't need them. Pretty please work. Are you kidding me? Is this really not working? Let me just see what happens here. There's something funky going on with this. Okay, thank you. Good, let's look at some markup now. Alright, so we slowly begin to drill down and just say, what is it that I don't need? That's the whole idea, remove all the stuff I don't need from my site. And the same thing, well, one thing is the body class, it's kind of like one of the small things. We have the region wrapper. So around every region in Drupal, we have the region TBL, right? I've never used region TBL for anything because I already have the region defined in my page TBL. So we have HTML, page, region, blog, and some kind of content. But the region TBL is kind of like one of those, it just wraps yet another div around. So you can remove that instantly like that. We can do the same thing with the blocks. We can go in and actually say, hey, I don't even need the block class. I don't need block IDs. If you don't want to have IDs, the problem with having IDs in your CSS is that an ID can only be on your page once. It is defined only. So IDs should actually be used for those elements. We should not just throw them around. And if you begin to put CSS that's defined on the ID, you're going to lock it hard down. And see here, we can actually take the nodes, do the same, links, field classes. Let me just remove a shit ton of stuff here. Same thing, if we look at the form, let's just take a really close look at this form here. You can see that for a form, we have the following one: form item, extra, form item, mothership class, field free form, and form required. And we have a label that has, or just a label on, and a div class against around this that gives even more data, and then we get to the thing. So, I mean, what I'm talking about, that we always have to grab it down. And well, if we don't need it, well, why do we have it? The reason that these classes set up this is kind of, you only want to remove the stuff that you don't need. I mean, having an identifier of what kind of type a field is can be kind of useful, but if you don't need it, well, remove it. So the idea here was that we want to remove the stuff that we don't need. And the same thing when we print out the items with the same labels. One of my small things is that if you have a description, how many of you have been in and working with the forms? Okay, 2 people. Got that. Okay, if you look at the form markup, the thing is that we have this one. This is description, and let's show you here. I mean, somebody called me anal when it comes to this, and they're marked right. I mean, everything else in Drupal is called form something, form wrapper, form item, blah 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 blah. But apparently, a description under a form element is called description. That is a pretty big class name to use for anything. In HTML5, they are actually talking about using the small tag instead. So, if you want to change this normally, you need to go deep down into the heart of Drupal. Yes. Okay. I mean, you need to go down. You need to find. You see here where we are. Here we go. The form element, and you need to drill down into all this code, and you need to find the description, which is this little field, and you need to change that. If you need to do this every time, that's why I kind of wrote this theme, is I didn't want to do this every day. I got tired by that. So it's kind of those small things that instead of having, the forms are kind of scary and you can break stuff. So by doing this in a pre-loading theme, we can clean it up. But not so. And on top of that, I added some placeholders. The placeholders is some of the most sexy shit out of HTML5. The thing is that we have a base name directly in a you can have a helper text inside of a field. We could always do that by JavaScript, but now, ta-da, we can actually put it directly in code. Let us just do this. Actually, we can look at it directly here, what we've done. So, here, baby. As you can see, now the markup begins to be. Can I actually make this bigger? No, I can't. Okay. So the whole idea here is to make the markup readable. Now it begins to look way much more what we actually want to do. We have an ID for this, edit settings, because that's kind of a place you always want to have. We have a form item, logo, path, and a form required class, which one of them defines what this is. The next one says this is required, so we can actually do stuff with it in the CSS. We have a very simple label for that input. Nothing else on this. If I want to theme this, or want to make this in bold or green or blue, well, I can just go and say, well, give me the form required. That one, it's the label. Make that black and red. My placeholder is now has a helper text into it, and besides that, nothing else. And down here, instead of saying div class name description, it just says small. And this is actually this is what this is all about. Smaller is better. So instead of you having to go down and do all this stuff in your markup, you can do this really quick. And what it does, as you can see, this text here, path to custom logo. So that is this is the way it's out. So this is kind of, helper text now just come directly in the markup, and that was kind of this is one of the small wins we have with HTML5. That HTML5 actually helps us out with this stuff. Anybody have any idea of how much time more I have? Because I thought it was 20 minutes, and okay, I'm just gonna jump along. So this is kind of the basic ideas. The next thing is let's look at some of these helper tools that I talked about. Let's just fire up all of them. And let's now another thing that Drupal does that I never really understood was it has an idea of we still have images for icons directly placed in the markup. Well, instead of trying to battle with the whole Drupal community about if that should be done or not, of course it should not be done, because less request is a better thing. So removing those, putting them into CSS files instead, it also makes it easier for us to actually control it. So the Mothership kind of come with a bunch of basic CSS files that we want to work with. The default file, this is kind of just dumb basic default stuff that we might want to put in. The idea is that you can use this if you want to. If you don't want to add it, well, you just don't put it in there. It's very, very simple. If you want to put in, if you want to have a basic layout, well, we can add that really quick. The basic layout doesn't really do that much. It just says, well, and it's if you're into that kind of stuff. I mean, ooh, responsive, yay, hooray. That's the new hot shit. So, by the way, check this one out. As you can see up here, this identifies the width of your screen. And we have built in a bunch of the most used breakpoints. This is just, well, I mean, when I'm designing websites for clients, we want to do mobile first. We should do mobile first, at least in my opinion. Another thing is that I always forget what my screen size is, and I ended up kind of reloading or measuring or using a develop tool for that. Now I just put it in here directly in this, and I actually want to show you the trick. This is like one of the easiest tricks in the groups, but also shows all the why CSS3 is so good. I basically say, hey, before the content, add this block and put no content in it. But if you have a max width of 319 pixels, well, go and say up to 20 pixels. It puts, how many of you know, does this make any sense? Content, do you know this? Isn't this the best thing ever? I mean, we can just do magic shit now with CSS. So it basically just tells my site, hey, your screen width is this size or that size. And instead of having to drag this stuff all around me, I put in these developer tools, and if anybody wants to steal this, download the Mothership, take this out and put it in your own theme and say, yeah, you should do that, because that is how we all do our stuff. I mean, steal with both hands. Is that what we call development? You go to GitHub, copy, paste. Look, I'm done. And that's kind of the whole idea here is to add a shit ton of practices that I've been working with. Let's just go out and full page again. So here comes, let me just show you, this is sweet. So, yeah, I know, now you're getting it. You saw how many fields there were before, right? So a problem if you're not using display suite, sometimes you want to have extreme control over your map. Display suite is good just to use. People who are, I mean, I think the guys who talked about the hero before would not probably be that excited about display suite and views and things coming in over it. Sometimes you just want to code it down, or you don't want to install 1,000 modules for it. So I actually like to work in a NoTPL with my text editor and just get my markup right. Implemented it that way I saw it. So when you have the theme helper put on, well, this is my NoTPL, and it identified as a NoTPL. So now go ahead and look and view the source. I need to change this. My Drupal site tells me where it's at, and it hasn't cluttered up my markup with anything else. And it is really simple. I just taken all the TPL files and copied them from core and just put it in the comments. So there's nothing magic about it, but I've set a little conditional class on it. There's a shit ton of if else in this. So you don't want to, if you're using the Mothership, you want to use some kind of uncompressed, what's it called? But you don't want to run if you function cache. There was the name, cache. Not only CSS cache. So what I want to do here is, as you can see, this is cut down to the bottom, right? It says article class node prototype, because that I want to know. And now it says hide content link, render content link, and it goes all the way down. This basically prints out every field I have defined in my node, in this NoTPL. Every one of them. You all know hide and render? Okay, who knows hide? Oh my god. Okay, this is the most. How many of you have looked at the NoTPL at the content variable? Let me just find that for you. Let's check news here. Okay, so we have a basic NoTPL. This one. Alright, so where are you at? So And don't be shy, because this is actually, this is really, really important. How many, anybody in this room have no idea what this does? This prints all the content, right, that comes from Drupal. That's all the content. If I want to hide something from this, let's say a user image, and put it in another column, how do we do that? We install display suite, or we use views, or no, we can actually hide it and show it again. So this actually says, well, print all the content. And these two down here says, well, print the links and print the comments. But what's actually happening in the top of the page is this, that before the site is even loaded, before the node is loaded, it goes in and says, well, hide content comments, hide content links. This is a part of the arrays of doom. And what we want to do is say, okay, remove this field, the image field, just remove that image field. Well, we would do something like this. Field, image, something. Oh, damn. You get the feel, right? Now, this is just hidden. And then you can print it somewhere. The problem is that I got really tired of going from here to here, to here, structure, content types, let's say it's the article, manage fields, boom, 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 boom. It's called field image. I needed to do that every time I had to find anything, because I needed to work with that piece of markup. What my view source does instead, I have way too many things over here. What is does is this? Let's go back here. I am very sorry for this kind of messy way of presenting, but for fuck's sake, let's go back. Good. So about that. So we're back. The idea is that you can very, very quickly go and say, oh yeah, I just need that field. Good, and we need to hide that. Done. And I want to print it. This field I want to show actually outside of the article. So first you tell Drupal, well, what I've done now is I removed that piece of content out of my content. And the good thing about this one with the content is that no matter what else a new module will put into your site, it will always be printed out here unless you told Drupal, hey, hide this stuff, and then you can do whatever you want with it afterwards. So I've actually taken an element from content, ripped it out, and printed it down there. Basic as that. And this seems really, really basic, but it's a pain in the ass unless you know the name. So that's kind of why that tool got even built from the get-go. And as we go down further, you will see other fields, giving you also the hook names. So if you want to write a new function that can do anything with this, you can remove that too. That's kind of the whole idea. So basically, this is actually, well, I've been, I'm going to put it lightly, I've been busting ass for at least 2 years now to kind of have a, first of all, discussion about what kind of markup do we really need. I don't need 3 divs and 6 classes, and 3 classes in each div, and an inner div for that piece of content that I just want to put out. I just need that piece of content. Drupal has worked in certain ways for a lot of years now because we needed to support IE5, IE6, whatever. And there's not that many of us who were interested in actually making the markup quicker and faster and better. The good thing is that now actually Drupal 8 begins to look really, really promising, and there's more and more of us who's taking into these discussions. And that's of course the, instead of going and I mean, basically what you saw here, go in, rewrite the markup, couple of clicks, remove the classes that you need, and then get on with your life. That's the whole idea. There is some kind of funky shit I've done. Let's say we have a block wrapper, and we know there's like other classes coming in that we don't need. Maybe that class collide with something else you have. Today in Drupal, there's no way that you else could remove a class unless you go in and do a pre-process function. But you can go in here and simply say, well, crab class name that irritates me, right? This is the class name you want to remove from some block somewhere, and it's done. It's all done by these pre-processes that run magically through Drupal's code. The problem with Drupal is basically that it's built so heavily into the system that when I started with Drupal, I thought it was a bunch. I was told, they lied to me though. I was told there was a complete separation from the markup and the machine thingy. So I thought, great, I don't have to think about this. Getting this shit out of Drupal has taken me years. Maybe it's because I'm dumb. Maybe because I'm Danish. Maybe it's because I'm both. But the thing is that nobody I asked about this could kind of help me. Yeah, we have this class array somewhere and you can maybe remove it. That was kind of the answers that was to it. So if you're kind of interested in getting that stuff done, some people think this is anal. If you work a lot in the front end and you use Firebug a lot, you will love this tool. And that's kind of the whole idea with it. To give a quick idea of, I think we passed 666, the number of the beast amount of sites last week, which I had hoped that we had hit that number just for one day. That could have been beautiful. I'm not online here, so the website is, well, there's two websites for it actually. There's the Mothership theme right out in one, actually with a dot in the middle. I thought it looked pretty awesome and I wrote it down on a piece of paper. You know, Mothership theme. The problem is that if you want to pronounce this with a dot, it's going to say Mothership the me. So much for me for being visual artisty kind of thinking man. Oh, this is going to be the greatest URL ever. And we started out taking all the documentation out of D.O because we could not control it the right way. And then I suddenly ended up having Mothership the me as a documentation site that I need to have my hands on. And people were suddenly beginning a couple of weeks ago going, Morten, can we help with the documentation? I was like, yeah, I need to give you access on my site. And that was kind of anti-Drupalish. I mean, you cannot go out to the community and say, hey, use my stuff because this is good shit, and then don't give them a chance to work with it. And I mean, I spell like a motherfucker. I'm the worst of them. I just write, and everything turns out crap. So people can actually go in and work with this now. So we even have real documentation. And the next project I'm going to work on this documentation, actually taking all the snippets, all the markup pieces that we changed, like the menu. The menu we rip out, the menu ID class. I mean, how many times do we move a site from test to staging to live, and the menu ID stays the same? Not that many. Well, it probably shouldn't. There's a lot of room for error, so we don't want to use those classes. We want to use logic instead. So there's a lot of things that we need to document and say, this is how the new markups is at. Because this is, besides of being my little pet project because I was irritated of how markup looked, it's also about giving a good start point for discussion about how markup, every time he comes in the room, I'm like, my time is up in 2 minutes, right? No, so this is also about discussing how markup should be. This is a place, the thing is that those of us who are working with it and using it on a day-to-day basis is discussing this a lot and trying a lot to push, figuring out how we're going to do it the best. Have a solid ground foundation instead of Drupal's idea of putting everything on top. We will have a totally naked Drupal first off, and then we want to put the clothes on. Instead of, I mean, it's not a chick I try to put a clothes off, right? Or dude. So that's kind of the thing. If people want to hang out with the really cool kids, we of course use RSC because RSC is like here we go. Bing. So Mothership.me is right now a broken site where we started to put in all the documents. It's going to be more a site of showcasing and downloading pirate logos and shameless promotion. I have a couple of these posters with me. This is, by the way, the first Drupal theme ever that comes with a poster, custom written, custom done, because this is, as it says, ruler of the Drupal 7 Cs, and all your HTML are belong to us. That's the whole idea. This project is all about, I mean, we are front-end developers. We want to have control over this stuff. I don't want to have Drupal to take control away from me. I know I'm a badass motherfucker writing HTML and CSS, and Drupal gives me something completely different that I want. That should not be the thing. I don't want to have to click for a read through display suite when I know how the markup should be. It's the number one problem we have with new themes coming in. I mean, how many of you understand where Drupal why the markups comes out as it does? Anybody have any idea, or it's just a thing we just now blindly accept? Well, yeah, that's how Drupal is. And that's kind of the assumption that, yeah, you know, just take the class and put it on. It makes crappy markup, it makes crappy CSS, and if we want to move forward, and as far as I know, that's one of the goals about Drupal, we always want to move forward. We're not backwards compatible, unless it's IE6, because that we need. I mean, we should burn every mark of IE6 support in Drupal. That should be a day-to-day basis in the issue queue. Yeah, just keep that. So that's kind of a very kind of quick idea to what the basic idea of what it is the Mothership project is all about. Controlling the markup and having a place to start some of these discussions. It's usable by any other theme. If you just go out and do the let me just find this file. Come on here. I mean, this is the magic line for everything. A very popular question I always get from people is like, so can I use this with the Omega theme? And I'm like, of course you can use it with the Omega theme. The Omega theme just has an idea of putting more diffs, regions, and something else on top of it that want to do another thing. This idea is markup first. We want to control the markup. We are markup specialists. We love writing HTML code. We love working with this. We love to think in these ways. And that is where it's all at. Built-in support also for Display Suite. Actually, Display Suite 2 that comes out pretty soon is, I have a shit ton of requests for the Display Suite guys, so now I expect to sit down and be like, yeah, we want to have that kind of markup, which kind of freaks me out. People actually ask me about it. That's kind of the basic idea of what the Mothership is. Remove all the crap, get your shit lean and mean, and take control back to those who should have it, the front-end developers. That was it.
It's time for. I shouldn't say that if you want to.
No. I will actually answer a couple. I've been using this. I've been working on this for like 2 years and been very much sitting down in my basement like, I'm gonna control it. So, any questions? Come on. One question. No question for Morten?
It's not really a question, it's just I think you're doing a bloody incredible job, because I haven't used Drupal until earlier this year and I was immediately put off by the markup.
Thank you.
I just could not fucking use the thing. It is awful. I mean, Drupal, it seems a really great system, but markup just put me off, so I think you're doing an incredible job.
You will be very happy to hear about the code sprint we did last week at the Front-End United, where we sat down 10 pissed off front people in a room like, what do we want to change? And we made a whole kind of list. We have been pissed off this for years, right? Whole list, sent it to the code sprint in San Francisco, and they basically took all our stuff and began to code that back and send code back to us. We could look at the next thing and like, oh yeah, thank you. So Drupal 8 looks to, this has been a long process, but looks really, really good.
My question was only about that working from the other end,
Yeah.
making the Drupal generated markup look better. How is it a work that's being done from that end?
Well,
rather than removing everything like you were doing.
yeah, so my approach to this has been for a long time that I want to have naked Drupal and then put stuff we want on top. Drupal as a system has been, hey, we need all these classes, all this stuff because it's a system, and it's been kind of a mantra from development point. Also, there's not been that many front-end developers who stood up in the crowd and say, hey, I want to take lead on this, I want to take charge of this. So last week, as I said, Front-end United had 220 attendees. When I asked out loud how many developers were in the room, like real developers, we had 10 people who raised their arms. The first Drupalcamp I was at in Brussels 5.5 years ago had 150 people in. So we actually now have in Europe more dedicated front-end developers who want to work with this than we had at a Drupalcamp 5 years ago. And that means that there's a place where developers can go and ask, but that also means that we now as front-end developers has a responsibility to go out and discuss this and say out loud and how to developers, hey dude, can we do this the other way, or I want to do that, kind of push it this way. The issue queue for HTML5, which I've been kind of active in, not as enough that I want to, has been very much trying to, JC, who's the leader of that, has been, she's even more pissed off than me. People who knows me know that takes a lot. She's from New York. So I mean, already she's scary as shit. We have tried and tried to have this discussion. I mean, it's been going on for years. The first round of what we were at now with HTML5 layer was basically just changing the markup, changing the fields, getting all that HTML5 thing, which, by the way, the Mothership, of course, is a leader in the HTML5 thing, and only that because we want to move forward and not support old shit. The future now from the new engine, it looks to be the trick engine that we're probably going to use in the future instead of PHP template. It's looking very promising. It looks very much like the development community has listened to our concerns and listened to the whole idea of putting stuff that we want on top. And maybe have a base theme in Drupal that puts all the default things in that people that, I mean, the idea is with Drupal that you install it, you put it into a module, and it by magic works. The reality is something completely different, right? That's the idea. That's why we need default, sensible default, so you don't have to. I mean, I don't want to put my vision of markup down on the head of all of you guys. I mean, I've been working with this for 15 years. If you come in the first day, just want to make that thing red over there, you should not have to use a month to learn everything. It should be easy to get through. But on the other hand, people who know what they're doing, I think I know what I'm doing, should be able to control it that way. And that's kind of the whole, you have two worlds that's colliding. And we really, it has changed a lot during the last 3 or 4 years. And the idea of a theme has changed from being some drooling little person who just needed a bunch of crayons, like, here, go play with your colors, till a bunch of loudmouthed, rude Vikings who want to fight anybody who came in their way. I was one of them, if you, if you believe that. But we have changed that a lot. And that basically means that, well, it is getting better, way better. And Drupal 8 looks right now to be really, really good. On the other hand, we said the same thing about Drupal 7 in 6 months before it came out. And then it came out, I was so happy about it. Then a year later, I was pissed off and delusionized by the whole project. But, I mean, if we go out as front-end developers and take responsibility, say what we want, and discuss this with, don't bitch at developers, but say, hey, if I can get it this way instead, it would help me out so much, this, and that way, instead of being bitch and only, then we can change a lot. So, things, that was more or less it. He gets me the evil eye now, more shut the fuck up eye. No more questions.
If you have any more questions, just ask them to Morten in the coffee break.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I will talk about this for days at the bar later tonight. And those two UX people, I want to have your asses open here. Now.
All right. You heard Morten, and give him a hand for the session.